housekeeping stuff first. Well, first off, hi, what's up? I'm Pato, and I listened to a ton of music this year. I also started making some music towards the end of the year, and the last 4 months have been like so inspiring and exciting in like a giddy sort of way where everything feels new to me, and I just am sad I can only listen to one song at a time. Yeah, there is a list of 75 albums that I really liked this year in a playlist. I'm only going to be talking about 24, so like 24 for 2024, but the other 50 albums that I'm not going to talk about, you can find in a playlist that'll be downstairs. There's also another playlist of my 100 favorite songs, not all from albums, some are just like singles or from like EPs or from an album that as a whole I didn't really like that much, but that one song, oh, that one song. Yeah, what else? Oh, and then all the music that I've been making, there's like a bunch of like DJ mixes essentially. Although I did just get this little MIDI for Christmas, and I made my first song yesterday, and it's so bad in like an endearing way, and I cannot wait to keep playing with it and make more stuff. But yeah, all my music stuff that I've been making is on my website. That's also down there. Okay, I think that's most of everything. I have like a list of my favorite albums and some others. I don't know. I have like little mini reviews to just kind of help me along the way. There is an order. I'm not super tied to the order, but it does exist. Yeah, these are my 24 favorite albums of the year. Starting with Endlessness by Nalisa Nefro. This is a really light and textured, sort of like warm jazz album that slowly builds up to these crescendos of like lushly arranged strings, and will build up also in like these electronic tinges that are sort of reminiscent of old like computer music, sort of like Emerald Web or other sort of like just like bliss out ambient tracks. Really good album though. Next is The Road to Hell is Paved with Good Intentions by Vegan. Sort of a return to form, back to a collaborative and creative approach to making electronic music. This is much more melodic and also much more lyrical. It is sort of like drum and bass centric, but it jumps between these like dubby bass lines and these really effect heavy drums. Vegan is really notorious for like reverse hits, and they sound really good throughout this album. And then there's obviously a lot of creative sampling or like vocal flips and splices. I really like this one. Next is an album by Sam Gendel called The Circle. So he released 5 albums this year or last year. I'm just gonna say this year. And you can't really go wrong with any of them. But of the 5, I think The Circle was my favorite. I'm a little more partial to the sort of horn section stuff that he does. He has another album called Music for Saxophones and Bass, I think, and it's one of my favorites by him, although I'm really partial to his sound in general. He does mostly like ambient sort of jazz albums, and they're almost all instrumental, I think. I can't think of one that has words, but maybe there is one. Yeah, this is really airy and breezy and ambient and heartfelt. Next this is in French, so I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong. Bailine a Boss by Violence Gratuiti. I think it means like free violence or something. This is experimental French electronic music. I feel like whatever I say will not prepare you for what this album actually sounds like. It is so insane in a good way. There's a ton of like arpeggios on like random instruments, like these layered sort of chanting vocals, really punchy drums. But yeah, it's freaky. I feel like you just have to kind of check it out for yourself. Speaking of, in kind of a similar vein, Sliff Slaff Slough by Mermaid Chunky. This is another one that's kind of hard to categorize and that you kind of just need to listen to for yourself, because I don't know how I'm going to do it justice or like really convey what it sounds like. I feel like if you just looked at a list of instruments used in this, it would kind of give you an idea of like the weirdness you're working with. There's like bagpipe solos and like some woodwind openings, and then there's like Mongolian throat chanting. There's also just like really dirty bass lines and like groovy drums. I don't know, it's a weird one. It's like this mounting sort of art pop epic. Kind of reminds you of Bjork a little bit, of like Fosora in some ways. But yeah, it's really playful. The lyrics themselves are sort of like these improvisational spoken word things. I feel like no matter how weird it gets, like, the groove of the song is undeniable. Like you'll be, you know, raising your eyebrows but nodding your head. I'm just gonna make sure that this is recording. Okay, we're good. On my last video, that was not the case, and I don't want that to happen again. Okay, next, I should have numbered these. I don't know what number this is. Bobbery by Otto Benson. This is another sort of return to form of an electronic artist I like, Vegan and now Otto. But this is sort of is a new bag of tricks this time around, and like a new set of plugins that he's playing with. There's still sort of like a signature sound of like chaotic and sort of like computer generated noises. In terms of like the real star of the show isn't like an instrument specifically, but like the effect pedal that he's playing with. Really inventive and sort of creative and unique. Although there are some comparisons that could be made to like other sort of like out there experimental electronic music that's like generative, like Autechre or some like Aphex Twin stuff. Those are definitely influences of his, but yeah, really intricate. And just in general, he's like a huge influence on me creatively. I think he's really cool. Yeah, it was a good album. Next is Wrong Weakness by Fievel is Glock. Not much to say on this one. I think it's just like a solid, good album that I listen to a lot. It's sort of light and like Baroque pop, mixed with these like really airy, jazzy backdrops, sort of like French inspired. I think one of them just is straight up French, so like maybe not inspired. But the jazz itself is played a lot of the drums with like brushes, so it like has this, I don't know, sense of like levity, and then the vocals are sort of syncopated and like out of rhythm at times. But yeah, overall really melodic and smooth, like free flowing, and feel good. Next is SD2 by Luke Man. This is a sort of sample heavy electronic album that mixes in some like acoustic elements, like electric or acoustic guitar. It shows a ton of range across all the songs. Some of them are like really bass rattling, like club hits, and some of them are just more laid back, sort of I don't know, jam sessions where like there's just a snaking synth line or like electric guitar lead going over a pretty like minimal track. There's some ambient sort of synth glitch stuff going on as well. A lot of vocal flips on the samples. The album itself is on the shorter side, but I feel like it does everything that it tries to do really well. So like everything kind of just gets a passing grade. It's a good album. I waited a long time to talk about it because it came out like the first week of January. But yeah, it's a good one. Next is Static by Actress. This was unexpected to me, at least, as sort of this hyper dub revival album, sort of akin to something like Burial or Laurel Halo. It's like this minimal, skeletal, grainy track with like glimpses of rhythm throughout, but overall like it's just really dark, not super melodic at all. But I got a lot of mileage out of it as sort of like an ambient album. And there is still like some through line or like rhythm / melody to it. It's just kind of like few and far between. It's a really like sparse album, but really atmospheric. There's just like sheets of static and grain and like white noise. And yeah, it's like kind of hypnotic. I feel like you could kind of zone out to it, or if you're really paying attention, it'll just kind of like put you in a trance. You Never End by Moyne. This is a sort of punky, garagey outfit with a lot of spoken word and sort of unaffected vocals. They're an interesting band. You can kind of think of dry cleaning as like a point of comparison. Um, yeah, that makes sense in my head. There's a lot of like feedback and reverb on like the guitars going on, but in like a controlled way. It never mix wise, like it never overtakes anything else going on in the song. They're not like cacophonies of like heavy noise or anything, but there is like a dark sort of through line to it. That's probably not explaining it super well. They're a band I really like, and I'm always excited to see that they came out with something else. They released, I think, like 3 albums in the last year or so, and they've all been really good, and I feel like this one is no exception. Next is Black Eye by Cyclops. This was a really pleasant surprise to me. I kind of just stumbled upon it when I was trying to listen to him in general, and I saw that something new had come out. It's a pretty like small release, went under my radar for a long time, but I feel like I found it right when I was like trying to get into making my own music, or like trying to do like the mixed stuff that I was getting into, and listening to it in that lens of trying to like study like what it was he was even doing, or like what progressions electronic music should take, like the sort of like beat and like a song structure. Studying this album, it's super creative and it's like left field house, so it wasn't very traditional, and it was just really creative and complicated and intricate and impressive, and I feel like it just found me at the right time as well. But yeah, some of the songs in here are so good. I think one is called like Jason and Paul. That song is crazy. Next is I Saw the TV Glow, the score by Alex G. I had listened to this album for months before I ever watched the movie, and I just liked it as its own thing. It is this like nocturnal, ambient, sort of droney, dilapidated, atmospheric thing that has a lot of highlights. Some of the songs individually were like my favorite of the year, like the song Downed Power Line, crazy. And then after I saw the movie, it was just like, it was over. Like, okay, you won. Yeah, just a really good album. Next is the album Marked by Klein. So good. It goes in a ton of different directions. It kind of feels like you're switching through like radio channels, and like each one is super disconnected from the last tonally. Some will be like sort of like field recording, buzzy, ambient tracks. Some are like just really dulled out piano ballads, and then some of them are like really abrasive and like hard hitting drums, and like I don't know, just like gnarly, distorted, compressed bass and drums, just like punchy and like, I don't know, like garage punk, that sort of thing. Really surprised by this. I feel like on first listen, I was just like being like taken aback at how insane it was. And it's held up really well. I've revisited a bunch and like it every time. Yeah. Next is Cafe Tom Tom by Cities Aviv. His like style is so deceptively simple, because it'll just be like a loop of something rhythmic, some catchy groove, some I don't know thing, but he just has a really unique ear for what can sound good, and these things that are kind of untraditional or seem out of place end up working really well in these sort of lengthy hypnotic tracks that I don't know, I'm always just really impressed by. I feel like the direction that his sound has gone in since sort of blowing up initially on the, I don't even know what genre you would categorize that, but like sort of like industrial hip hop adjacent, into just this like really mellow and like textured sonic soundscapey thing. I'm just really impressed by it, and I really like it a lot more than like the initial output that he had. I think he's just really cool and unique. All right, oops. Because they're not numbered, I didn't realize I was like doing the top 10, and then the list ended, and I was like, I was not giving top 10. Okay, so this is the top 10. I feel like the Cities of Eve album could have like, I don't know. I'm not super tight at the order, but whatever. Number 10 is I Love You So Much by Inner Life. This is equal parts kind of subdued and approachable and impressive. It's these like sort of washed out ambient tracks mixed with like some soft rock. There's some elements of field sounds, like some bird noises at some point, and then in the more like ambient tracks, it's just like sheets of white noise and grain layered over these sort of like electronic hums and swells. It's just constantly pleasant, catchy, rhythmic. I feel like whatever kind of direction it's leaning to, whether it's like strictly ambient or more like rocky, soft like indie stuff, I'm into it either way, and I always finish the album whenever I put it on, which I feel like is just the sign of a good album. Yeah, I don't know, it's just a really pleasant one. I like listening to it. Not much more else to it, but yeah, I thought it was really good. Next is a surprise one. Number 9 is Memoride 1 by Quando. This came out 2 weeks ago and made the top 10. I just had it on repeat like for 3 or 4 days straight. I could not get enough of it. It's just this like amalgam of so many artists and sounds that I'm into, and I would have never asked for them to be put together, but it turns out it was like something I desperately needed this whole time. It's this mix of like Gia Margaret's piano playing, of the books, the way that they like have these vocal samples of just like daily life interspersed, of someone like Ray Harakami or Otto, and like the playful sort of glitchiness. It's like all 3 of those elements put in one. It's just so pleasant and nice and interesting and like intricate and really good and singular. It just feels really special, and just combines so many different like facets of my interests in a way where I would have never thought to put, you know, them together. But yeah, I really liked it. Next is No Title as of 13th February 2024, 28,340 Dead by Godspeed You Black Emperor. They are a band I've never really paid much attention to, and listening to this album made me realize how much of a disservice I've been doing to myself. They're just these sprawling, like really long epics, like or not, what word am I looking for? Instrumentals. I was gonna say orchestras. These like sprawling instrumental tracks that are kind of like space rock adjacent, and like these operatic, like chamber ballads. Just, I don't know, like swelling hypnotic tracks that they function well as just music on their own. Like listening to it, I was already into it, but then because it's being delivered in such like an overtly political package, they kind of have and like take on this quality of like this mournful, like elegiac, I don't know, like reprise, and feel so profound, and like the way that they just are arranged and play out just feels really affecting. But yeah, even just as music on their own, I feel like the song Babies in a Thundercloud is up there for best song of the year. But yeah, I just found this really, really moving and was really impressed by it and liked it a lot, and went on to listen to like the rest of the band's catalog, and yeah, they're really cool. And this is, for me at least, was a really great starting point. What number is this? 7? I think. Okay, number 7 is Minotaur by Tex Petrello. Criminally under-listened to. For majority of the year, like since this came out, they had like 200 listeners or something. They might not still have that many, I don't know, but I just feel like more people should listen to them because it is so appealing and like outwardly good, and no one I know knows what it is. And I don't know, it's like this blend of like early Alex G tapes, and in like the sense that it's like this dilapidated sort of like toy box and like hauntology type thing, but then she has these like inflections and arrangements which kind of invoke Kate Bush, and it's such a weird combination, but it works so well. And then her songwriting itself is also super unique and singular, and it just made, I don't know, it's such like a weird, pleasant package that really impressed me. And I had not heard, obviously, like I pointed out some similarities, but together, like as its own thing, it's just really singular, and I thought it was really cool. And yeah, not a lot of people heard this one, so if you missed it, check it out. At number 6 is Kingdom of Discipline by Sun Ra and his orchestra. This is like like a, I don't know what the term is, like reissue or like re-release of like a bunch of old recordings. So kind of like unearthing these like archival tapes of the band rehearsing, of some live performances, of just some past songs being performed again. But the initial track, I think it's called Tone Poem 9. It's so amazing. It's like bar none one of my favorite Sun Ra songs, and I feel like I'm a pretty big fan. So like, I don't know, to me that just like means a lot. And it's just so like languid and airy and like soulful and improvisational, and I don't know, I was obsessed with it upon hearing it. And then the rest of the album has a lot of range within like the different types of Sun Ra's music, whether it's like the sort of angry piano stuff, like the Haverford live album that he had. That was like a solo piano concert, or some of the more like pleasant, melodic, traditional jazz songs, like on something from like Sound Sun Pleasure. I just thought it was a really good album, uh, the best in a while. And I know that there's like a ton of stuff being released, so I don't know if this is like new songs or if some of them have been like in previous issues, but listening, a lot of it was new to me. Obviously not like Love from Outer Space, but yeah, anyways, Sun Ra jazz band, quintet, quartet, orchestra, whatever. Really good jazz music, and I thought this album was amazing. Okay, top 5 time. The order from like 5 to 2 could kind of be interchanged, but number 1 is number 1. Okay, so number 5, I have Manning Fireworks by M.J. Lenderman. Okay, it has really quirky songwriting and really endearing and sort of intimate ways that his voice cracks when he's delivering the lyrics, and it just makes for something that is very obviously, or maybe I shouldn't say obviously, that sounds like connotative, but it makes something that is like widely appealing and catchy and like melodic and like made for radio sort of thing feel really intimate and personal and like delivered in a way that like feels authentic. And it's just this really cool blend of something being, you know, made and like polished and like that whatever high esteem, and then also being super DIY songwriter. And then the lyricism itself is like this stilted sort of poetry, and then it's all like sort of like indie twang, and then there's these really high highs of like just guitar thrashing and like really cool riffs. It's just a really good album, like really solid. I feel like it blew up this year and was like really popular, but for good reason. I feel like whatever you've heard about this album is probably true. And I just thought it was really good. Next at number 4 is Pretty Side of the Ugly Life by Tony Vaz. This was another like cool find for me, similar to the Tex Petrello. It's a really small artist, like below 1,000 listeners, and it is like indie rock, but with some super soulful arrangements and like this like country twang underneath it all. Even though it on the surface can be kind of like angsty and like disaffected vocally, kind of like gravelly voice. I wrote that it's kind of like a mix of Bar Italia and Wednesday. I don't know if I still believe that, but I wrote it. On the album, there's so many highlights for me. I feel like it's so densely good. It's a short album. It's like 30 minutes or something, but out of the 9 songs on it, I feel like 3 of them could easily make my top 10 songs of the year list. It's just like so stacked and like high quality, while still being this very singer-songwriter like DIY approach. Yeah, it's like a little rougher on the edges, but in like a really cool and inspiring way, and I really liked it. Next is a similar album, I Don't Care If Anyone Listens to This Shit Once You Do by Pig Baby. I don't think I connected to an album more than this one this year. But even that being said, I acknowledge that it has faults, pretty glaring ones, and is like really, really, really rough around the edges. But anyways, I connected to it a lot, partly because of how alienating it is and like unapologetically is. It seems really uninterested in trying to make something appealing or conventionally good, and more just trying to act on an intrinsic impulse or idea or kind of experience that he had, and just like purging it, like working through it through a song. Uh, a lot of the tracks feel really personal, and it's his voice is definitely not impressive, even though this is sort of like a singer-songwriter at times. It's a bunch of things. Like sound-wise, it's more of like a collage than like a cohesive album. Um, there's some like the lead single was like this drum and bass sort of like anthemic thing, but there's also like a 10-minute like acoustic country ballad. There's some purely like ambient soundscapes that are really beautiful, and that is like mirrored by these sort of like blown out shoegazy, um, what sounds like a sort of like bedroom studio made in, where he's just like singing into like a really cheap microphone and like blowing it out. um it's all, I don't know, it's weird, but like it just kind of works. Initially it didn't. I remember I listened to it for the first time and I was really, really, really unimpressed. He's a label mate of Vegan, and so I just kind of expected, I don't know, something in that vein, and it was it was not. But I remember one of the songs was just still stuck in my head, even though I kind of, you know, forgot about the album. And then I revisited it, and like I liked another song, and then I would revisit it and like another song, and then eventually I had like these individual appreciations for like all these different songs, and would listen to it as like one thing and just get like swept up in and inspired by it. And I don't know, I can't put into words logically why I like it, because on paper it's it's not good, but you know, despite that, I still really, really love it. So much so that like I've listened to it maybe upwards of like 50 times at this point. Once I like was convinced that I liked it and was having just this intrinsic response to someone else's art that defied anything I could explain, I was like just really moved and excited by that, and just decided to lean into it and not try and like figure out why I liked this sort of like spoken word, really bad singer thing. That was weird and alienating, like overly personal. Uh, but yeah, I feel like this has like crossed this threshold where it just goes in like my personal canon of things that make up and like define my taste. Okay, number two is Your Day Will Come by Chanel Beads. They, as a band, are a huge inspiration to me to begin with. I've been wanting to make music for a while, and I have this like, huge playlist going of songs that I want to sound like, or like artists that I want to sort of like, imitate, I guess, or like pull from. And Chanel Beads were one of like the first artists I ever put in there, with some of the singles in like 2022, that they came out with, like Ache, True Altruism, I think is that one. There's also F. I won't go through all of them, but anyways, I just really like their sound to begin with, and this album just impressed me like on all fronts, where it was what I wanted and then also improved upon things that I wasn't even really complaining about. Like I feel like the songwriting itself got so much better in this album and just turned it into something really impressive. And I don't know, it's just so good. It's so good in like a way that like I wasn't even prepared for. I don't know, even like their sound improved. Let's see. It's sort of like experimental and like dilapidated indie rock, indie pop sort of thing. Uh, there's some like electronic tinges as well. It sort of reminds me of like the kind of shoegazy lady scene going on, like the Melina, the ML Butch, the is her name also just Lolina, I think. Um, Anyways, stuff like that. If you mixed it with like God Save the Animals, that Alex G album from 2 years ago, it's just, it's, I don't know, it like scratches an itch in my brain, and it's just really representative of my taste at the moment, and I just really liked it. There's so many highlights. I feel like the song Earn is also like one of the best songs of the year. Yeah, just a really, really, really good album. Oh, it's so good. And then my number one album is Howl by Daisy Rickman. This is an acoustic folk album that is like hauntingly beautiful. Her voice specifically is like this inverse of those like classic bluegrass folk singers like Karen Dalton or Linda Perhacs or Molly Drake even, I guess. Just like the opposite of that, where it's so sullen and low and husky and like gravelly, kind of like what I sound like right now because I'm kind of like sick. But anyways, it's just like so beautiful. And then the instrumentation itself is like all acoustic, like mostly just guitar. Sometimes like two guitars at once, like a 12 string. I can't really tell. It's all like sort of dizzying and hypnotic, and it's just so good. The title track as well, there's some like cello instrumentation which I'm really partial to, and the title track is just this cello song that is creaky and like haunted and groaning and like echoing in and out of itself, and it reminds me of some like great Arthur Russell songs. Yeah, the singer-songwriter elements as well, like the vocal inflections are all like rooted in like, I don't know, just very folk, capital F, like kind of like folklore, not like medieval or anything, but kind of like a children's story come to life. Like that makes me think of like Joanna Newsom, which she's also kind of like an inverse. It's just like so many artists that I love, all like in this contemporary package that was brand new to me, and just listening to the album for the first time felt so comforting, and like it's just like a blanket wraps around you. It's so good. Her voice is so beautiful and unique, and yeah, this is just the best album of the year in my eyes. Yep. So what did I miss? Check the playlist that has like the other 50 albums, because maybe it's in there. It was really hard to narrow it down this year. I feel like the quality of music was super high, but I'm sure I missed something. In my last video, someone recommended me the album Heavy Metal, and I loved that one. So yeah, I'm like open to recs. I will listen to them. Let me know what of my list we had in common, or if there's something new that you want to check out. I don't know. I would love to talk music. And if also you make music and would like to do something together, I'm very interested in getting help from wherever I can, now that I am trying to figure stuff out on my own. Yeah, music. Thank you. Bye.